name's Iris, and my chosen topic was food waste, and I also chose the country of Canada. So, as background, Canada is surprisingly facing a really big crisis with both food insecurity and food waste. Although they produce more than enough food, I think around 12 million people, extra people's worth of food, there's still a large percentage of the population facing food insecurity. And meanwhile, billions of tons of food are wasted across Canada's supply chain, which is causing a lot of negative environmental impacts as long as financial difficulties. So, current solutions that generally rely on private sector initiatives are usually insufficient and kind of lack the centralization needed to solve such complex issues. So, as a result, I suggest a government led centralized strategy to really directly tackle these two issues. So, first of all, food insecurity in Canada. Uh, the statistics here are pretty surprising. First of all, over 8.7 million Canadians were seen as food insecure in 2023. That's around 20% of the population, and that was a 4% increase in food insecurity since 2021. So, as it is currently 2025, it is likely that this number has continued to increase. On the other hand, certain more marginalized groups um, are facing a larger population of insecure people within their communities, largely due to the direct correlation between food insecurity and poverty. So Canada is also facing a really big issue with food insecurity. Between 48 and 64% of Canada's total food production is wasted. That's around 28.2 million tons, and that's an economic cost of $58 billion. So this may be surprising because Canada's government is known to be very strong and be pretty well off, economically speaking, compared to the rest of the world. They have a stable parliamentary democratic government, and it provides a lot of state-funded infrastructure, including welfare, clean drinking water, housing, education, health, and more. However, they don't provide welfare for the food insecure, so they don't have a food stamp program. And also, they've launched a few existing initiatives, but they're mostly promises and goals and haven't actually achieved anything. So the existing solutions include mostly private sector solutions. So that means charities and food banks, including Second Harvest, really have the goal to redistribute food that would otherwise be lost throughout the supply chain into consumers' hands. However, they kind of face the limitation of not really being accessible to the people who really need it. Instead, they're kind of used by a large population, but this does not necessarily help with food insecurity. Similarly, there are private apps like Flash Food, Food Hero, Too Good To Go that also redistribute surplus food, but they face similar issues, including being largely uncoordinated, profit driven, and having limitations with availability, unpredictable hours. And there's also somewhat of a social stigma to go to food banks. And although 8.7 million Canadians are food insecure, only 2 to 3 million people visit food banks a year. So that's over 5 million Canadians who are food insecure and do not use charity food bank efforts as well as private apps to get their food. Finally, there's also been some government financial support and funding for these private charities, but we don't really see a public solution. So my proposed solution is to use the benefit of having such a strong government into creating a centralized government-led initiative. So given the extent of the problem and just the obvious limitations with the current uncoordinated system, I think this is really the perfect case for the federal government to step in. So I propose two different solutions. First of all, farm-to-table food savings. As we know, poverty is a large cause of Canada's food insecurity problem, and by lowering grocery costs, we can therefore help solve food insecurity. And that has to do also with lowering the economic cost of food waste. Considering that food waste costs Canada $58 billion, that's money that could be saved right out of consumers' pockets. So this means putting a larger emphasis on saving food throughout the supply chain and really just making a government program that will look over all of these parts of the chain, look at food that would otherwise be discarded due to cosmetic standards, market fluctuations, and more. So that really deals with the income-based nature of food insecurity. Then there's a government to consumer redistribution pipeline, essentially taking what these apps and food banks and charities are trying to do, but doing it better and more coordinated through a mobile platform where eligible users can enroll. So making this exclusive to people who really do need it. And by offering surplus food at a low or no cost at all, we provide a stable alternative to the current food bank model. This would reduce social stigma, improve access, and more, simply because it's well funded, it's well organized, and the food can be delivered to the house instead of having to wait outside in lines. So in conclusion, Canada is facing this kind of dual crisis, which is kind of surprising and leads itself to my solution, where these two problems kind of solve each other, as long as the government really pays close attention and uses proper effort into creating this reality. Thanks for listening.